Welcome to our Middle East briefing program. Today, we have some intriguing stories lined up for you. First up, President Biden faces a critical challenge as perceptions about his toughness and strength lag behind those of his rival, Donald Trump, according to recent polls. This could be both a hurdle and an opportunity as we head into the November elections. Next, we shift our focus to Hong Kong, where Premier League footballer Jerry Lam Lok-yin is making headlines. Lam is urging for the legalization of gambling on local matches to revive interest and financial stability in the struggling Hong Kong Premier League. And finally, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is expected to plead guilty to a U.S. espionage charge in a deal that will likely see him released from prison and returned to Australia. This could mark the end of a long and controversial legal battle. Please stay tuned for more details on these stories. Yahoo US, President Joe Biden's campaign is gearing up for the upcoming presidential debate with a determined mindset. Senior political editor Mark Murray highlights that the term fighting has become a central theme for Biden's team, as they aim to counter perceptions of his strength and toughness. Both Mitch Landrieu and Vice President Kamala Harris emphasized Biden's commitment to fighting for the American people in recent interviews. This narrative is crucial as polls show that voters currently perceive Biden as less tough than his opponent, Donald Trump. The debate presents a significant opportunity for Biden to reshape this perception and demonstrate his resilience and leadership qualities. NBC News, a Democratic House primary in New York is revealing deep divisions within the party, particularly over the Israel-Hamas conflict. Progressive Representative Jamal Bowman is facing a fierce challenge from centrist George Latimer, with the race drawing substantial ad spending, especially from pro-Israel groups like AIPAC. Bowman, a vocal critic of Israel, is defending his seat against a well-funded opposition, highlighting the broader ideological rifts that echo the 2016 presidential primary between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. The outcome of this primary could signal the direction of the Democratic Party on foreign policy issues and its internal dynamics. South China Morning Post, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is expected to plead guilty to a U.S. espionage charge in a deal that could end his prolonged imprisonment in Britain and allow him to return to Australia. Assange, who has been held in London's Belmarsh prison since 2019, will likely plead guilty to conspiring to obtain and disclose classified U.S. national defense documents. This plea deal follows a decade-long legal battle that began with the release of hundreds of thousands of classified documents in 2010, leading to his indictment under the Espionage Act. The case has been a flashpoint for debates on press freedom and the rights of publishers. Washington Post, Julian Assange, the enigmatic founder of WikiLeaks, has traversed a tumultuous path from a young hacker in Australia to a global whistleblower, and finally, a man negotiating a plea deal to end his legal woes. Born in 1971 in Queensland, Assange's early life was marked by a fascination with computers, leading him to become a skilled hacker known as Mendax. In 2006, he co-founded WikiLeaks, which gained international notoriety in 2010 for leaking classified U.S. military and diplomatic documents. One of the most shocking releases was the "Collateral Murder" video, showing a U.S. Army helicopter attack in Iraq. Assange's journey took a dramatic turn in 2012 when he sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London to avoid extradition to Sweden over sexual assault allegations, which he claimed were a pretext to extradite him to the U.S. His stay at the embassy was fraught with tension, culminating in his arrest in 2019 after Ecuador withdrew his asylum status. Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Julian Assange is on the verge of freedom following a plea deal with U.S. prosecutors that will allow him to return to Australia. Assange is set to plead guilty to violating U.S. espionage law, which could end his imprisonment in Britain. The plea deal includes a sentence of 62 months of time already served, with a hearing scheduled on the island of Saipan. This deal marks the conclusion of a decade-long saga that began with WikiLeaks' 2010 release of hundreds of thousands of classified U.S. military documents, the largest security breach in U.S. military history. The documents, leaked by Chelsea Manning, included a video of a U.S. Apache helicopter attack in Iraq, killing a dozen people including 2 Reuters staff. The charges against Assange have sparked global outrage, with many arguing that as a publisher, he should not face charges typically reserved for government employees who leak information. Press freedom advocates view his prosecution as a threat to free speech. New York Times, Julian Assange has agreed to plead guilty to a single felony count of illegally obtaining and disclosing national security material in exchange for his release from a British prison, ending his prolonged standoff with the United States. The agreement allows Assange to appear before a federal judge in Saipan, a remote U.S. Commonwealth in the Pacific Ocean, much closer to his native Australia. The deal is expected to conclude with Assange's return to Australia after the proceedings. This marks the end of a contentious chapter that began with Assange's controversial revelations of state secrets in the 2010s, including American military activities in Iraq and Afghanistan and confidential diplomatic cables. WikiLeaks' release of emails from the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 campaign further polarized public opinion, with some praising Assange as a crusader for transparency and others condemning him for compromising national security. South China Morning Post reports that Russia's military treaty with North Korea has provoked a stern warning from South Korea, which threatens to arm Ukraine in retaliation. This strategic shift could significantly impact the ongoing conflict between Kyiv and Moscow. South Korean National Security Advisor Chung Ho-jin warned Russia against supplying high-precision weapons to North Korea, a move that could escalate regional tensions and provoke a military response from South Korea and its allies. Experts suggest that Seoul's provision of lethal aid, such as Chunmoo multiple rocket launch systems, K-9 howitzers, and K-2 tanks, could help Ukraine make a breakthrough in the war. Meanwhile, North Korea's outdated air force is unlikely to deter air attacks from the sophisticated stealth aircraft of the United States and South Korea. Analysts believe that Russia might provide North Korea with anti-air defense systems and less lethal technology, such as space program advancements. Observers also speculate that North Korea might leverage its new defense pact with Russia to pressure Beijing into forming a three-way military alliance, although Beijing is hesitant to align itself too closely with Pyongyang and Moscow. In another report from South China Morning Post, China's largest state-owned offshore oil field, Suizhong 36-1, has reached a production milestone of 100 million tons, 733 million barrels, amid Beijing's drive for energy security. This achievement underscores the importance of old oil fields in bolstering China's energy independence and reducing reliance on imports. The Suizhong 36-1 oil field, which began production in 1993, is a key component of China's oil-producing hub in Bohai Bay. The milestone is significant for national energy security, economic growth, and daily life needs, according to Zhang Chunxing, a vice general manager at the China National Offshore Oil Corporation's Tianjin branch. Despite being the world's largest crude oil buyer, China consumes over 700 million tons annually but only produces 200 million tons. The country has intensified its search for domestic oil sources due to geopolitical uncertainties. The Suizhong 36-1 oil field has proven reserves of over 300 million tons and produces 8,900 tons of crude oil daily. China continues to rely heavily on imports, with Russia and the United States among its top suppliers. BBC reports that Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, will plead guilty to U.S. criminal charges as part of a deal that allows him to go free. Assange, who has spent the last 5 years in a British prison fighting extradition to the U.S., will receive credit for his time incarcerated in the UK and will return to Australia. The deal, expected to be finalised in a court in the Northern Mariana Islands, will see Assange plead guilty to one charge of conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defence information. The case against Assange has been politically charged, with U.S. prosecutors initially wanting to try him on 18 counts under the Espionage Act. WikiLeaks published over 10 million documents, including confidential U.S. military records and diplomatic messages related to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Assange's legal battles have been long and fraught, with the UK High Court recently allowing him to bring a new appeal against extradition. His wife, Stella, has called on the Biden administration to distance itself from the prosecution. Assange has also faced separate charges in Sweden, which were eventually dropped, but he was taken into custody by UK authorities for not surrendering to the courts. His health has reportedly suffered during his time in prison, including a small stroke in 2021. Associated Press: WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is set to plead guilty to a felony charge in a deal with the U.S. Justice Department, which will see him freed from prison and resolve a protracted legal saga involving the publication of classified documents. Scheduled to appear in federal court in the Mariana Islands, Assange will plead guilty to conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified national defense information under the Espionage Act. This plea agreement, pending judicial approval, concludes a case that has captivated international attention and polarized opinions on press freedom and national security. Assange, who spent years in the Ecuadorian embassy in London to avoid extradition, will return to Australia after his sentencing. The deal includes time served, acknowledging the 5 years he spent in a British prison while fighting extradition. Assange supporters hail him as a champion for exposing military misconduct, notably the 2007 Apache helicopter attack in Baghdad, while critics argue his actions endangered national security. The case against Assange, initially bypassed by the Obama administration, gained momentum under the Trump administration. His legal battles, including a 7-year stint in the Ecuadorian embassy, have taken a toll on his health. Despite Sweden dropping its sex crimes investigation due to elapsed time, Assange remained in Belmarsh prison during the U.S. extradition fight. The plea deal comes after President Biden considered Australia's request to drop the prosecution, signaling a potential end to Assange's decade-long ordeal. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
News breaks, buzz the ground, stories spit, walls come down. Voices merge in the sound, faces mix in the crowd. Broadcasters paint the scene, world events on our screen. Every link a different theme, words collide in the stream. 6 degrees connect the dots, background stories hold the nuts. Hear the voices rise aloft, truth unveils in every spot. Cultures clash across the globe, spin the threads in a stroke. Every story wears a robe, truth and lies in their code. Journalistic real deep, secrets that they don't see. Every angle they repeat, in the news we take a lead. New perspectives day by day, hidden truths come to play. In the background shades of gray, every story finds its way. Perspectives day by day, hidden truths come to play. In the background shades of gray, every story finds its way.
Cultures, I go, what really or do not, what enough to be you, everything and ever, what enough and after, what enough and after, what enough and after, enough 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 enough